Hey folks, bringing you another tip. And this one comes to you from Craig Valentine. And we're going to talk about story today. Craig Valentine says that the hook to any speech is the story. The story is what draws in your audience and really gets them to pay attention. Now, if the hook to any speech is a story, the hook to the story is conflict. Whether it's person versus person, person versus nature, person versus technology, person versus self. Some kind of conflict is the thing that grabs you in a story. Now, this thing to note about conflict is that you must establish conflict in the story very early, otherwise you lose your audience. For example, in the story of the Titanic, one of the first things you know is that ship crashed into the iceberg. Very early on, that was told, and that created the landscape, the space for the entire movie, the entire story to be played out. But that conflict was established very quickly. So keep that in mind when you're telling a story. The next thing about conflict is that once you've kind of broken exposed the conflict and made it clear that there is a conflict in the story, you must escalate it. And this is the very nature of a story, is that you establish that conflict and it escalates to the point of getting worse and worse and worse. And so in your story, you actually demonstrate the conflict getting worse and worse, like the story of the Titanic. The water started rising, and it's rising slowly, but you could clearly see that the situation was getting worse and worse and worse and worse until the absolute point of desperation where something had to give. And that's the climax of the story. So think about this in your speech. And if you create a story with a speech with a story as a hook, a hook to the story is with conflict, and then you establish that conflict quickly and escalate it throughout the story, your audience will not be able to look away from you. So that's today's tip: conflict and speeches.